you're going to encounter in your professional lives. And then after that, we'll do debates. And those debates, again, we'll talk about some ethical and social considerations. And whatever side you've chosen, it's important to represent that side whether or not you personally agree with it, right? That's inconsequential for the debates. You're just supposed to represent that point of view. And again, so this will be my last lecture. And I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say starting next week. So the way that I typically do this is you have a drop box up for both the drug gene pairs and also for the debates. And so your groups will upload the information before the start of class. So for example, in the drug genes, for the drug gene pairs that will start next Tuesday, your PowerPoint slide, or if you have a couple of slides, that's fine, but your slides should be uploaded before the start of class. So I will use that to randomly select those PowerPoints, and then the groups will present the information, whether you're in Athens or Augusta, and go through it. You have about 5 minutes to do that. Yes, question in the back.
Can you please say that?
We're always doing something in class. So if you opted out of these assignments because you decided to do the pharmacogenomic testing on yourself or your pet or something like that, you will still be logging into ELC and answering some questions. So you still get a participation grade. So if you're planning on not coming, you won't receive that credit. So I haven't included that. It's kind of like the quiz format that we're doing, but unlike the quizzes, there's no like right or wrong answer because we're thinking about ethical and social considerations. So I'm not grading you on your opinion. What I'm grading you on is, do you embrace the argument, or do you understand the different sides, the different points of view, that kind of thing. So you will be answering some questions. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so you won't just be sitting here, because I know it would be pretty boring just to sit here and listen to all the groups. So I want to incorporate a little bit more than just doing that, and not just listening, but listening with intent. You know, what are they presenting? How are they presenting it, and so forth. All right, so Tuesday, Thursday, we'll have the drug gene pairs, then we'll have Thanksgiving break, and then after that, we'll have the ethical debates on that Tuesday, Thursday, and then the last day of class, we will do an exam review. And so that class will be optional. If you want to ask questions about the final exam, you can come to that. It'll just be a question and answer session. If you don't want to, that's fine too. All right, so technically we've got, including this one, 6 classes left. All right, so are there other housekeeping items, other questions? Today we're going to do a group activity, and it's going to surround cancer of unknown primary origin, which most people don't even realize that there is such a thing as cancer of unknown primary origin. So it's called SAMPEDE, CUP, so that's its acronym. And this accounts for approximately 31,810 cases in the US every year. Males and females are in that number. So what this means is that cancer was diagnosed in a patient, but it was diagnosed at a metastatic site without really detecting a solid tumor primary location. So they don't know where it originated from. Because it's found at a metastatic site, there is no staging system for cancer of unknown primary. Hopefully that makes sense to you at this point. If it's a metastatic tumor, there's no staging system because it's already stage 4. Okay, so there's no point in trying to add some finesse to that. It's already at a metastatic site. Prognosis is usually not great, and that correlates with the fact that it is a metastatic cancer. We don't have a cure for metastatic disease, although in certain cases, prostate cancer, breast cancer, these patients can live for a really, really long time with a very high quality of life. Further tests may eventually find the primary site of some of these cancers, but there's still less than a quarter of patients that will have no idea where that primary site was. Usually what that indicates is that the immune system is really strong in that individual and it has removed or reduced or killed off the tumor or whatever that primary site was, but was unable to affect the metastatic site. And typically that's because metastatic tumor cells are far, far more aggressive and virulent than the primary tumor cells. And so how this is diagnosed is usually something like a brain metastases or possibly mets in the lungs. So one very, very famous example of this a couple of years ago was Jimmy Carter, and he was found with a lesion in his brain. And people thought it's brain cancer. They said it's definitely not brain cancer. It's a metastatic lesion, and it took them a while to figure out where in the world it came from and what type of cancer it was. And eventually they figured out that it was melanoma. They have no idea where the primary site of that melanoma was. It was long gone by the time the brain mets formed. So again, this happens in a small percentage of people, and that's just one very popular example of when that happens. It could also be in the lymph nodes, perhaps. The cancer is in the lymphatic system, but it's somewhere else. And it's very hard to treat a metastatic site anyways, right? Mets in the brain, mets in the lungs. Very hard to treat that, but it's certainly hard to treat it when you have no idea where it's from. So now with new scientific advances like genomics and sequencing, the primary origin for cancer of unknown primary can be determined. About 4 out of 5 cases are going to be able to figure out what that is. A lot of that has to do with sample processing, so they're going to take a sample of the tumor and also a sample of the blood to look at the germline mutations that are possible in the patient and also the somatic mutations that could be present in the tumor and the blood to see what else is in circulation. They're going to do a sample prep, they're going to do sequencing and bioinformatic analysis to look at what mutations does that patient have and what do we know about those mutations? Where do they most prominently arise? Again, because we're not searching for the primary tumor, we're assuming the primary tumor is gone, completely disappeared and completely eradicated from the system. So at this point, we're just trying to use the genetics to figure out what are we dealing with? What would be the best treatment options for this patient? And one interesting test that was FDA approved last year was a 468 gene oncopanel. And this is interesting because this was one of the first wide panels. Like a lot of times when we see the companion diagnostics, they're assessing one gene or one target. Well, this was looking at hundreds of targets, and it was intended to detect mutations in cancer. And we call this MSK impact testing because it was approved first in New York State, and it was designed at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. And so we're going to assume in this exercise that we have patients with cancer of unknown primary and that we've sent this out for impact testing. And so what we want to do is based on the results and the genetic information that I have provided to you, you're going to first, with your groups, hypothesize the primary origin of the cancers. Then you're going to recommend therapy based upon that answer. And you're going to fill out a worksheet and upload your group's answers to ELC by the end of class. All right, so now what I'm going to do is go to ELC and publish the directions and the worksheet and the results. And so the directions are as I've described. You have this information and you'll fill in a worksheet. So the goal is to practice pharmacogenetic applications in oncology. So you're going to have to determine the primary tumor origin using the genetics to classify it, and then you're going to have to recommend therapy. So you have patients AA through GG. And I have a Dropbox created for these as well. And so you can go ahead and start. And once you guys get going, if you're stuck, we can go through the first example to try to get you on your way.
Yeah, we're stuck.
Make sense? All right.
I was like, yeah, we're stuck.
Stop.
So she'll do the first one.
What?
She's gonna do the first one if we can't figure it out.
Okay.